PR Connections Radio presents.
Did you know your clothing could help balance your body's pH levels? Our cutting-edge fabric technology naturally promotes optimal pH balance, helping you feel energized, refreshed, and at your best every day. Use promo code PRTalk for more info. Tap the link in the description or contact our experts at 702-445-9488 to learn more.
Hi, everyone. Welcome today. This is a great, exciting episode for me as usual, but more importantly, because it's my second season. Here I am, Lisa Vasquez, your host for Liberating Menopause, and with so much gratitude and thankfulness to give to prconnectionsradio.com for, allowing me to present Liberating Menopause, to be able to speak to women in the workplace, corporate leaders, UHS, healthcare professional leaders, everyone who's working in business with women mostly. But today, what's so exciting about my second season is today we're going to be talking a little bit about andropause, about men, and what's going on with their diaper-to-diaper lifestyle. And this is at no offense to them at all. But the thing about the phrase that I used was to present the fact that men, they only have two phases in their life. They start out with their puberty and they end up with the next set of diapers toward the end of their life, really, because 92-year-old, that was in 1982, I think it was one of the oldest men that had a pregnancy. And then by 2012, the oldest man was 96 years old. So it's kind of, where does that line cross with men, and when do they enter into that stage of that other phase of their life? And this is so important because in between all that, there's that in-between dash that goes through into their lives where what I've been studying and reading about is this industry during pregnancy in the home place, I guess you would say, and how men are not either informed that there's a paternity leave that they can take, or they disregard it because of the fear of not being looked at as a leader, which I don't understand that, because if you really have that pride to take place and have that perspective and respect that you're bringing in a new life and to be present for that. Men traditionally have never really been involved in that on the emotional side. They're not training and they don't go into any changes for mental health or, anything that emotionally women do. Women go every month, every year till menopause. They're emotionally intact because they have to emotionally tune into themselves. Whereas men, they don't have to gear into that. And by the time they start to face the facts that things are changing, it's always blamed on the job and the energy that they're losing there and the age place that they're at. They're really not looking at, it could be a hormonal change that takes place. I mean, they do have hormones, and especially during a woman's pregnancy. This is going to be the next podcast because there's just so much to talk about this, but their hormones actually change. I mean, their testosterone actually drops when the woman becomes pregnant and she starts getting ready to nest. He's affected so much, and that's going to be an interesting conversation. But today, I really want to talk about this billion-dollar question and why this money is being given back to the companies instead of men taking the stand. And everybody needs a pause. In the statistics of what I've been reading, I'm going to start with those girl dads because that's a really important thing, because that's just such a big growing community. Back in 1980, there was 393,000 men that turned into girl dads. And by at least 2023, we had over 3 million men who have taken that position of girl dads. When I talked to a couple of girl dads, I wondered what were some of their challenges because they have to be mom, period. They have to be mom. But with girl dads, when they're kind of thrust in these positions sometimes, and emotionally, they probably weren't really connected with the woman who was carrying the child. This is why they became a girl dad. And one instance I could bring to you is, back in the 80s, there was a lot of separation from the girls and the men. And, I know that from growing up in my own neighborhood because I had a lot of young teenage pregnancies there. And as I watched this happen, all my friends that did get pregnant at that time, there was not a lot of men involved. So everything did fall on the girls. And to this day, that's just how it's always been considered. Even in the policies at work, the maternity policy is right there in the package for women, but it's not made in a policy that men can actually take this kind of leave also. So that leaves them out and they're not even aware. Maybe they do want to take it, but the self-reporting of knowing that this exists for them, it's not part of the interview. I mean, and I don't think that it's something that they ask for either, because it's a big question of these things that are not being applied in a men's world, in a men's life. But the girl dad thing, these numbers, when they rose, girl dads, this is how it contributes to the visibility of having that title of girl dads. Which is why, to bring you back to my book, is why that I brought this book to be created, especially knowing that we have girl dads out there and they're alone, just like that little girl's alone. I mean, when this happens to them, here's another instant story I can give you, because I biologically did not have children, but my husband brought me the daughter. She was 9 years old when I met her, and so she's growing up, and he's raising her. He's a girl dad, and he's raising her. He's at home with his mother, and upstairs are her aunts and her cousins, and downstairs her grandmother. So she's surrounded by women. But when it came time to that moment when she was 11 years old, and I was in her life now, she gave me that phone call to let me know that it was time. And so then I asked my husband, how would he have taken this? What was his biggest challenges with her without having a woman in place? And his was, when you have to go shopping for their underclothes and when you have to go into the restrooms with them because they're so little. I mean, there's a lot of challenges that girl dads go through. But understanding this most important part of their life, knowing that when their menstruation's coming, this is why, understanding and reading this book. I even had a section here that I wanted to read to you because it was a conversation that my little lady Blossom was having with her father. And I'll just read it to you right now. One evening, Lady Blossom's in her living room with her dad, and he's preparing to pack a suitcase, right, for business trip. And there he goes. Lady Blossom sits on the couch looking a bit overwhelmed, and Lady Blossom's dad notices her mood and sits down beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Dad says, "Hey, Blossom, I can tell you're going through a lot right now. With all these changes, it must feel pretty overwhelming." Lady Blossom, she has a big sigh, like, "Yeah, Dad, it's so confusing and everything just feels different." Dad says, "I understand, sweetheart. I really wish I could be here with you, but I must go on this business trip. And this is where we're always conditioned to knowing that they won't be here for that moment. And he's sorry to leave right now, but he lets her know that, I want you to know that even though I'll be away, I'll always just be a phone call away or a text away. And anytime you need to talk, I'll be there, Lady Blossom." She's thanking her father, and then he says, "Hey, why don't you go talk to your mother? And remember, your mom is here with you. She has been through similar changes herself." And, it's astonishing because women didn't talk to us, right? we didn't get any big stories from our mothers, from my generation or the past generations. That just was a silent discovery story. So, Lady Blossom's like, really? Dad, mom too? I mean, he's just going to let her know that, yeah, she's just on a different level, but maybe you could support each other. And, my book is really to bring back this factor, the community of being in family, having conversations that are so personal and private, but exposing them into a non-shameful way that, hey, I talked to my dad about it. What? I mean, could you imagine? I mean, I don't know what the future looks like, but I would love to see it look like that when they come and talk about my dad taught me this, because we've already all grown up and our mothers still didn't give us any of that insight. So to change this long-term road that so many generations will grow into, having that bond with the father is so important. And so being a girl dad, he has a lot of challenges. He has a lot to do. And for him, he wasn't there to have to take a leave of absence, because apparently, there's always something missing on the other side of the other partnership, right? So, or maybe he could have been there and he could have taken off, but maybe he didn't know about it. Some fathers have like low income jobs, and low income jobs can really have a big effect on you because they don't support a lot of this kind of leave. And if they do, it might be that non-paid FMLA leave of absence. So they don't want to take that chance either. So there's a lot of things that really block why men don't take this route to support us during this time. But then on the other side of it, if men continue on and don't give us the support, women are continuously being burned out because there's so much of a load dropped on them. Some partners really believe that, she's got this, so there's no need for him to be there for her. He doesn't need to be there. And that's just a traditional old history that we've always had to be there. So it's not so much that, yeah, they're going to be there and, don't worry, she's got this, so I can go to work. Yeah, but what's happening to her there? I mean, she wants to bond with the babies and she only has 3 months to do it, especially if she had twins. Imagine that, before she has to go back to work. I mean, she probably loves her job just as much as he does. And, she really wants to get back in the swing of things, but now she's got a different bond happening here. And without his support, she's got to do this alone. And in 3 months, that time's going to go so fast. And before she even really got to meet this baby or babies, she's leaving. So now she's broken, and that emotional unstableness and, the worry of how, will the baby remember me, because she's going to be raised, wherever the daycare is or things like that. There's a big fear about all this stuff. But when they do it together, men being there, they say how much supportive, for instance, a daughter is, how much confidence she has, and the paternal link that comes into a man's world when he can actually emotionally come into tact with that by seeing the woman and what she's going through. I mean, he can take over where she can go take a rest, and then she comes back, and then he can go do what he's doing. But, her involvement is so much more involved because of her emotional clarity that she has in this hook, whereas he is only building it and beginning to see, because he's never been there to see any of this take place. And now that he's on paternity leave to be with her, he's seeing that, wow, there is a lot to be done. And, a lot of men, they talk about, I think it's 90% of men that really enjoy saying that, no, 52% of men say that they have more of an affectionate, they're more affectionate than their fathers were. But the other part of it is that there's 90% that say how much they enjoy being home and engaging with the children. But that's at a different level. But to have a future where men are using this leave of absence to be there to support the woman and really grow a healthier family lifestyle, that's really more of the key for the future because of how things look today. And we're so separated, but we don't have to be separated anymore. We don't have to degrade into that anymore because we have all this power boost. We have the jobs that can support it and have it if you just ask about it. It's really out there. We just need the knowledge and the awareness. I mean, if executive leaders, and maybe they do this, but they don't announce it. So HR, I mean, there should be a news bulletin about showing that executive leaders are taking this paternity leave to be home and build that family tree and make it stronger. I mean, they're building a company and they're building that with what you would call a family, right? And they're there and they're growing it and its industry is $1 billion and they're really kicking it there. But what they can do and make a difference at home is where those leaders can really echo down the streamline to the working man that this is a cool thing to do and it's the good thing to do and it's a best thing for the woman when she knows. I mean, to see a lot of times when you first see a man carry a baby, women are so touched by that. Why is that? Because we don't see it a lot. And when you see that, especially if you're over somebody's house and they just had a baby and they just happen to put it in your husband's hands, your boyfriend's hands, and you're standing there and you're looking, wow, look at him. Wow, look how cool he would look if he was a father. I mean, those are those moments. And of course they give back the baby and, and they're just like so nervous to even to touch the baby and be there with the baby because she's so tender and precious that they don't even know how to do it, So by seeing this is why it's such tender moments when women see that and can react. But men, we really need to show them and show them that way how important this road to paternity and giving support instead of having mom bear the brunt of things, that leads her to burnout. I mean, her mental health is really at stake because of all the hormonal shifts that's taking place and all that stuff. And if she doesn't have that mom room to go to really relax it, the struggles that she goes into, and then to think the stalling of the career choice. Do I go back? What do I do? I really want to be here. I haven't been here long enough. And again, she really likes her job. So, the end choice will probably be where she'll go back to work. But imagine the impact of a campaign that reframes this paternity leave as a leadership, not a liability. And that's what men fear. That they won't get that extra job, that they won't shift up into something new. And, increasingly, fathers with their daughters, we just need that so much. So now here I'm going to take you into my life because I was one of those girls who I had both my parents. Great. I mean, this was our foundation back in the 60s, right? He went to work, my mother went to work, but they came home. The thing about their shifts were my mother worked the first shift, so she'd be home by 3:30, 4 o'clock. When we get home from school, he worked the night shift. So he'd leave at 2:30 while I'm at school. He's sleeping in the morning while I'm getting ready for school. And the only time when he gets home is 11:30 at night, and now I'm sleeping. So not having that bond wasn't something that I recognized or noticed. The only way I noticed my father's presence was Saturdays when they go grocery shopping and, or on Friday nights would be a special night because he'd bring us home a pizza at midnight and we get to stay up and have it. And whoa, it's a great time. So these were fun times, right? And then the other times were, back then I attended a Catholic school. So a certain time of, quarterly or however they passed out our 4 quarters, right? Our report cards. So they'd be all left on the counter and he'd come home at midnight and he gets to look at them. So now you're fearing, because if you know that you had a bad grade or something, first thing in the morning, you're going to hear it. So these are the only ways that I kind of knew my father in that way. And it really stole a lot from me, I have to tell you, because my father's culture was very strong in my Hispanic background, where my mother was more Americanized. So she Americanized me more than gave me my Hispanic background. And by not having that intervention with my father so much, I didn't look at him as he was kind of the guy who came home and made rules and things like that. But really, it was my mother telling him, which created this atmosphere and bubble of how I seen him, and it wasn't there, and I didn't know it till what, when I'm 2021, and now I see, oh wow, it was really her. Because if she didn't tell on me, then I wouldn't have gotten in trouble from this guy who comes home at midnight, and that was a very strained relationship. But after 2021, I mean, I bonded with my father. I mean, to this day, he just left me. He was 98 years old a year ago. And boy, do I love that guy so much. I miss him. I love him. And just growing up with him and all these last 30 something years, maybe 40. But, I mean, it was really cool. I mean, he's a great guy. I played pool with him. My sister, she was his bowling partner, and her husband, and me and my husband played pool. I'd take him to shows. He'd come to Vegas. We'd have a great time. And it was a really cool thing. But the point being is that I wondered what it would be like had I had a stronger bond as a younger girl being in this. And so when you read about it, you know of why it matters, and how a man could really put himself in the position of making his masculinity available to show the differences between the mother and the father's support in this groove. I mean, it's really important. So talking about the statistics, I mean, in New York, thinking about this and all the money that's being given back to the companies, I mean, billions of dollars in New York alone, $1.6 billion was paid parental leave unused in 2024. Could you imagine that? That was a lot of money. And the thing is, it goes back to the company, right? And here, and even if that father needed a pause or needed that moment, they don't know how more invigorating and how much energy that they can have and bring back to the company on what they're doing, instead of being that slug that just keeps going and going and going, and just keeps taking all the batter and all that stuff. We all need a pause. We're all a hormone. We all have it. But we need to learn to engage in this. This is why I'm all about hormones. I'm modern menopause consultancy. This is why I bring these subjects to you, because this has been something that has been leading and driving us in our bodies for years, and it wasn't brought up in that way. It didn't teach us as women that, wow, if this is like a coat that you put on. This is the only way I can describe it, in different fashions, in the way we dress. I mean, that first coat we put on is when that menstruation starts, and then you get into that pre-menstruation. Now you're in your menstruation cycle, and then you're getting into the peri phases, and getting to that menopause. But nobody ever talked about how this was functioning in our chemistry, how it was leading us, what was happening. So knowing that about men and thinking they only have those two lanes to be in, but that in between time, I mean, men don't announce when they go into puberty, I mean, like women. I mean, it's a big thing when we get our menstruation, right? Some people celebrate it and some people keep it hidden, but men, it's avoided, it's avoiding self-reporting. You're not going to really know it. And, to receive zero guidance on emotions, their literacy, they don't get that. Because why would they? They're not being trained monthly. They don't have to get in touch with themselves. They don't have to start sensing, oh, here it comes again. Oh, I'm feeling sick. Oh, my pimples started popping out. Oh, I'm getting cramps. No, they don't have to go through any of that, because that's not the lane they're in. They misattribute their moods. They blame that, again, like I was saying, on the work. Their energy changes, and they're not stopping to think, hey, I should go get my hormones checked. I should go, and their andropause. They don't think about any of that. And this is, it's not the work, and it's not the stress. It's, just a biology. It's just the next stage that we go through and men go through. And it's something that needs to be announced and talked about, because they're in the workplace too. They get crabby. Their andropause, it it's so unrecognized that, it starts between 35 and 40. I mean, if they didn't know that, that's about when it really starts to kick in. Their testosterone drops 1% a year. So then that's when fatigue and all those things start kicking in. And I don't know, women, if you've ever noticed, your men's mood swings increase. Of course, they get a decrease in their libido and increased in visceral fat. And of course, that's the fat on the inside of the body that's hanging around on the organs. And of course, that's very unhealthy. I mean, any obesity is unhealthy, but these are the changes that happen with men. And, not knowing and understanding that kind of flow, that's why this is so important. And that's why this next episode I talk about is how I don't think statistically that they really recognize that they're actually shifting and changing in their hormones when their woman gets pregnant and that little baby's coming out from the both of them. There is going to be a big shift, so understanding this, just thinking about all that money. So after New York, lost that much, then they went in and included New Jersey and California, and the total money loss came out to be $4 billion together. And that's just an unclaimed benefit. That's a lot of throwaway money. But it's really not the money. It's that emotional bond. It's that health and self-care, self-love for your partner, self-love for that baby that's being born. Getting involved at this stage. We don't want to wait till, unfortunately, something goes wrong with the relationship and we rise even more with girl dads. We don't want to wait for a husband to have to lose his partner and then have to sit there and wonder, I got 3 girls, what am I going to do? These are thoughts that when they bond together at this time, at this special time of birth, they grow together and it shows together and it reflects so much on the children that it's just unbelievable. There's like so much that happens, especially in the women's. 44% of the women in New Jersey, for instance, they use their eligibility, on their paternity leave, and 16% of the men, they didn't use it, so that's an eligible thing that they could have been there and they weren't, and they don't know that they need to be, and because they think that, on average, that it's just, we got this and we'll take care of it. But knowing the stress that women go through today, because we're in a faster lane of life, technology's changing. I mean, the money that has to be spent on daycare, the separation the woman has to go through after 3 months, her heartbreak. I didn't know, but overseas, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not somewhere in Australia, they actually get 12 months to bond. Could you imagine that? 1 whole year. That's a good shining and glow to this bonding that the mother must have. I mean, I'm sure nobody ever wants to separate at all, but to be able to have developed in 12 months, to have your breakdowns and moments of your emotional changes and all that, and I'll be there looking at that little bundle of precious joy that you've created and how that's going to change your life. And right now that doesn't happen because women have to go back to work here after 3 months, so that's just something that can really benefit a woman. And I really hope that the men out there hear this and listen to that. You really could consider this book, Girl in the Red, Your Hormones Are Showing, for your little girls, because it is so important. And if you get this book, anybody gets this book, sitting there, not just giving it to the little girl to read, but to sit there with her and communicate with it and learn and understand, because I'm telling you, there's so much adventure in that book, because there's so much understanding to share, because these are things we never talked about or discussed. And what you learn is so deep. It's so exciting. Just when I studied it to read it and write it, I was like, wow, and wow again, because there's just a lot of wows and bringing this. And that was the first thing I kind of thought about, was all those girl dads who don't know where to reach, what to do on this next level, how this is going to go, how will he get through it. Out of, some of these people that don't take the paternity leave, it's not that it's a policy failure, it's just a big communication crisis. And that's why I want to speak about it on this new season, because from this second season, we're going to go into that other side. I took you into all these other kind of breakdowns on the woman's behalf, but the other side, there's a lot of trauma that comes out. There's a lot of changes that come out and women have to deal with. There's so many new ways that women in the workplace, we have to really deal with a lot of changes that take place in this new evolution of our lives, because again, things are going so fast. We live in a culture that avoids vulnerability. Men can't be vulnerable, and this isn't true, because as a couple, when you're home alone and you see how cute your husband can be doing things that, oh my gosh, especially like say he's watching Lifetime with you, the Lifetime channel. He's not going to want the boys to know that he's sitting at home with you, but you think it's so cute and it's comforting, right? Because he's enjoying a movie with you, even though it's a chick thing, but he's hanging out with you and he's learning from that. I mean, I know a lot of guys that actually, young guys too, right? They read Vogue magazines, right? Because they want to figure out how to hook into a woman, right? What cues? What do I do? How do I answer this? What if she asks me that? Why can't we read those books on how to hook into when my girl gets pregnant, when my wife gets pregnant? What can I do for her? How can I smooth the pathways to make it happen? Let me look at my job policies. Maybe it's there. Oh no, nobody's ever taken that kind of leave. Well, you could be the first one to do it, because if the leadership isn't going to show you, and if HR doesn't announce, the bulletin boards and newspaper articles are saying anything about this, you can really be the first one to create that change. And it's only going to bring so much more, gosh, I can't even imagine how good you would feel having to know that, you're having that emotional change, and to live on a stage for a lifelong hormonal illiteracy is what we're living in now, but literacy, knowing that, because like I said, men are hormones also. And I'm telling you, when I found out that, actually male hormones, men's testosterone, when the pregnancy starts to occur, actually drops. It drops so that they're not as strong in that. Testosterone is a strength builder, right? It's strength, muscles. It's that kind of power. It actually drops on men. That's one of them. And then the progesterone changes. And I'll tell you about that next time. But, talking about the rise of these girl dads, the rise of the lack of, why would we want to give the companies back all that money when they're offering it to you to enjoy, to go be home with that baby, be home with that emotional moment, enjoy that, because after that bond, when you're going to raise that child and they know that you've been there and you were there, because like right now I was telling you about my father and mother, right? I don't really believe that he was really there to be carrying me around as much as my mother was, and because he was working that night shift. He was always working that night shift my whole life. So I can't imagine that I had that kind of bond, and that's probably why I love him so much more as I got older, because we were able to have a different kind of bond, which was really cool no matter what age you bond with your father. But in my case, that was the bond, and the lack was because he wasn't there, because he was at work, I was at school, I'm growing up, I'm hanging out with my friends, and now he's at home, and now I'm not. So, it's just a big give and take thing. But if men can give more now at that birth stage, and then that puberty stage, because he's not going to share, again, men don't share any of that stage. And when they do come into those other changes, you may see the changes in them, but It's not like they're going to say, why don't I go get a andropause check? Why don't I go see what's happening here? It's just really, really important for men to understand that, you need to be checked up just like that. It's not just a matter of having blood labs and getting your heart checked and stuff like that. Check those hormones and see how you're doing, because of that, a lot of things can change in your life. Fathers who actually lead with their daughters, or could imagine with sons, having them right there all the time, because again, little boys don't see it, so they're going to grow up to be the men that are giving back all this money. So with all that said, that male pause, to live on a stage for lifting again this hormonal life that's really in control of our lives. It's our health. It's just a big part of us. I mean, there's so many other factors, of course, to our body building internally and connecting. But this is a big one. And the more we know about it and the more men understand it, the stronger that they're going to help us out, because this is what it's all about, working together, growing this community. Women are getting stronger in the workplace, and they have to get stronger even though they're not getting that support. But imagine if they're having corporate leadership support, changing structures of how women work in the workplace, and then they have that support at home from their husband, at least doing the dishes or doing something like that they don't usually do. I can't imagine how beautiful this world would be. Because, instead of, they even say that statistically, it cuts down on divorces and breakdowns of relationships because the bonds get so much stronger during this time. So I always think about that, because this is what this world needs, is bringing us all together, bringing back all that love, bringing back that foundation of family. I don't like to keep looking back at Leave It to Beaver and seeing, why don't we have that anymore? Why don't we have those kids? Because the structure has changed, and if it has, and it has to be this new way, that's great. But let's make it a happier place to be here together to enforce that. I mean, it might help cut down on the bullying that takes place, because a lot of bullying takes place because of somebody trying to get that attention. They're working out something that they don't understand in their own emotions. So to change all this and make this a better world, I'm just asking, give it a chance. Men, think about that paternity leave. Stop giving it back to the company when they're trying to give it to you, because you're never going to see those funds go away. But you could think about how you could use that time to find you, some more of you, because nobody today is stopping to do that. So I want to thank you so much for hearing me today. My new second season, Lisa Vasquez, coming to you from Liberating Menopause. And we're talking about men in the workplace, and hopefully building a better world in the workplace for men and women, changing the structures and bringing back community in the family unit. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by Envision U. Envision U has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With Envision U, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code envisionu.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching.